Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our training today. My name is Mike La Charite. I am a gold consultant with Team Sky, and we are very excited to come here today to talk to you about this. I wanted to just give a minute to also introduce my co-host here. Beth, are you on the line? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm on the line, Mike. Hi.
Okay, perfect. So Beth joined us a few months ago, and she has had some great trade show experience as well. So, Beth, you want to give everybody just a quick little introduction?
Absolutely. My name's Beth White. I started with Archer in September. I've currently brought on just a few agents, so I'm not quite executive yet. Um, did my first trade show earlier this month, and it was very successful. And I'm happy to share some of the things that Mike and I have used at our trade shows, and we're successful with it.
Awesome. So, I know we have a couple people in the chat who said they've got some good experience as well. So feel free to share what you've done. The great thing about this company that I love so much is we all get to learn from each other, and it really doesn't matter how long we've been here. There's so much experience in different levels from different people. So, super excited to collaborate with you all. And I have everybody muted right now, but feel free to unmute and ask questions throughout. We'll also try to watch the chat as we get started. Okay. All right. So let's dig in. I thought breaking this up into like a 7 steps model would be kind of a easy way to attack it. So, first thing I wanted to talk about is what types of trade shows are accessible for travel agents, and what are kind of good opportunities for us. So, as Beth mentioned, she and I have both gotten into wedding shows, of course, weddings and honeymoons and all of that good stuff. There's a lot of opportunity there, and it's a really good opportunity to build clients for life, right? Because, after the wedding, there comes baby moons and family travel and, anniversary trips and all sorts of great stuff. Also, there's a ton of local festivals and fairs, and depending on where you are, in the country, there's holiday fairs, there are summer events. So definitely checking in with your city. I'm actually doing in a couple of weeks, they have a Super Bowl Sunday 5K and 10K event here, and they have for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, Super Bowl weekend set up. So that's another one to look at. Beth County Fairs for sure, that's a great one. School and church events also really big, especially if you are into faith-based travel. It's great opportunity, a great audience to get in front of. Local sporting events, I mentioned the 5K, Little League, all of those kind of things. They have different openings and such. And then there's the industry events and the conferences, and that would be things like CLIA Cruise 360 that's coming up. Anything put on by the major organizations. ASTA has a big conference. So there's a ton of opportunities here, and depending on what area you're in, what type of opportunity is, the investments are going to range on these. I think for the wedding shows, a lot of what I see is between 700 to 1,000 or 1,100 a booth, depending on how big the show is. That's what I've been paying for these last couple that are 2 to 3,000 attendees. So, and some of them, the local stuff, are just gonna be $100 or whatnot. So, that's just a little introduction to kind of what we're looking at here and what kind of events we're looking towards. So step one for me when I am looking at building my trade show experience is really having a clear set of objectives and goals. I don't like to live in, la world that it's like, oh, I just want to show up and sell clients. Like I want to have an idea of who's coming, how many people are coming, and something tangible that I can challenge myself to reach. So it might be something like, I want to collect 100 leads at this show that I can reach out to. It may be I want to book, for your first one, it may just be I want to get my money back. So I want to sell enough to make my $1,000 that I spent back or whatever. But the way I like to kind of set those is really asking myself, so at the end of the day, after the show, if I look back on it, what's going to make me feel like it was a success? And that is a really easy way to get those goals in front of yourself. Last thing I want to do is be disappointed after a show that I've done. And so I think really, going into myself and figuring out, okay, what's going to make me happy at the end of it? That's where those goals come from for me. And like I said, try to be as specific as possible in your planning because it's going to, what goals and objectives you set is going to inform all the rest of the process that we're going to talk about. All right, step two would be the design of the booth, right? You want something eye-catching that's going to bring people in. You want it to be on brand, um, but you also want to make sure that it's simple. You want to make sure that you stand out because a lot of these shows are going to have multiple travel agents. So I'm trying to figure out what's going to help you to stand out. Make sure you include your niche because this makes you unique. And so some of our niches may be we're doing wedding shows, obviously a niche there is going to be weddings and honeymoons. But what subset of that? Like, are you focused on Caribbean? Are you really good at Europe? Do you like adventurous things like Antarctica, getting married in front of an iceberg with an orca as your ring bearer? Wouldn't that be cool? So really kind of take into account what your niche is and try to figure out what's going to really make you stand out. Um, in my opinion, and Beth, I'd love your thoughts on this too. Like this is one of the most important areas, I think, for you to invest money in your booth because uh, I just think it sets the stage for the rest of the program. And to that end, because you're going to invest in display items and things like that, you want to think of longevity. You want to think of items you can reuse for multiple shows. You want to make sure that you're putting the effort into your design to proofread and make sure it's what you want. Get some of your colleagues. When I did my first one, I sent my backdrop to uh, several of my colleagues in Team Sky, and let me get your feedback on this. What do you think? Because I didn't want to have to spend the money on it and then go back and re-spend the money again for the next show. So um, I think that part's really important.
I agree. I spent quite a bit of money to go from brand new agent to making my booth look professional. I wanted to really make sure that the show that I was going to was going to have between 1,500 and 2,000 people. And I wanted to stand out. I wanted them to be able to see me from afar.
Yep, 100%. Kathy asked about some examples. Yes, I'm actually going to show you those just right now. So this was my booth. This is the backdrop I had designed. I think I spent about $500 on it the first time that I did it, but that was about $300 for the graphic and then the stand behind it, which is a really cool accordion stand that folds up really small, was about 150, something like that. So this is where I'm saying like it's really important when you're thinking about the investment. Like I don't want to have to spend that again for every show, right? So you want to make sure your tagline is correct. You want to make sure your specialties that you put on there are diverse and they speak to the various different shows. Like I use this at the wedding shows. I use this for my ribbon cutting. I'm taking this to the Super Bowl show because it's applicable everywhere, right? A couple of other things I did, like I really wanted to stand out. And I thought at wedding shows, what have I seen when I've attended? Like I had to go back, 13 years to when we got married and my wife dragged me along to these shows. And, God, everybody wants to go to the Caribbean. So you know what? I'm going to use Europe. I'm going to try something different. Um, so that is an example. And I forgot to pull up Beth's picture to add in here. Give me just a second because I want to show you hers looked awesome as well. And of course, I forgot to add it to the slideshow.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I did swipe some of Mike's ideas when we were talking about this, trying to just bounce ideas off each other. So
Well,
you'll see
that's what
a
it's all
couple
about,
things. You'll
right?
see a couple things that were kind of alike, but slightly different.
I mean, that to me is what this is all about. Like, I think I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a second because I have to change the window that I'm doing. But I think that's the beauty of this company is nobody is trying to keep secrets from each other, nobody is trying to say, hey, this is, what I'm doing, and don't you dare touch any of it. Like I love the camaraderie here, and hey, I want to help you grow just like I've grown, and I obviously stole my ideas from other people at some point. So, I'm big on just in life in general. I think there's a lot more focus on competition than there needs to be. I think there's plenty of business out there for all of us, and I really truly believe that if one of us does well, we all do well. And if one of us gets better, we all do better. So I am happy to share. And I know Beth feels very much the same, but I love how your booth came out. And this shows a very different example. Like that banner's a lot more manageable to bring around and set up as opposed to the huge 8x10. You can fit that in a lot more ways. Why
It
don't you
just
talk?
goes right in like a blind, a
Yep,
window blind, carry it away.
totally. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you kind of your thought process as you put this up?
I kind of went with what I know the best and what I have um trained on and feel like I could talk about openly and freely and not skip around. So I am a Hawaiian expert, which that picture was, oh, my flag is still there, but it's turned sideways. I'm a Hawaiian destination expert, so of course I brought that. This was a bridal show, so I've also got all my knots for Virgin Voyages, and it's adults only, so I thought that would be great for bride and grooms. I've been on MSC quite a few times, so that it comes natural to me. And I've also completed the College of Knowledge of Disney. And I just wanted to do a little bit of what I felt very comfortable with. My table that has many other flyers in stands. That picture was taken before we got it set up because, as you can see, this was kind of early in the show. And left those 3-ring binders out, and people were constantly coming over and opening them. I created what the content mainly myself, pictures and stuff that I got offline from our training sessions. I also gave away our 7-day resort voucher and had people sign up for that. They put their little papers in the box, and now I have all their information as a contact. And then, of course, spinning the wheel was very, very much fun. I had people lined up waiting, and if they weren't lined up waiting, I was making eye contact, said, "Hey, come here, don't you want to spin this?" Just anything I could do to get them to my table, get that information, to interact with them, let them get to know the kind of person that I am and what I have to offer.
I love it. And one of the things I really love, and this is something for a lot of shows, we tend to want to bring more than we need, right? Like I tend to, hey, if I'm going to bring a flyer, I need 150 copies of each one because I don't want people to run out. And I'm telling you guys, I have brought flyers. I've done trade shows for a lot of years, and the thing I've learned is people don't pick up anything, and if they do, it gets lost. So what I love that Beth did here was she did these binders. So she only had to print it once or twice, if you have 2 binders for each one, and they can scan through it, they can look through it, then they put it back having QR codes to get to your website, all of that's great. But I really like this as opposed to focusing on, hey, I'm going to just get a bunch of collateral that people are going to take away, because honestly, they don't. Like I probably gave away 10 supplier flyers at my shows because people just don't want to take it all. And a lot of times they don't bring bags and stuff. What they do take is they take your brochure. So, I brought business cards and the brochures and all that, but I just really, really like that binder idea. And talk about stealing things from me. I'm probably stealing that from you for my future shows. But I just love this. Another point here is you can see how well organized her display is. If you guys have never done a trade show before, it's not going to stay like that. So it's really important. And I know it's hard because you're busy talking to people, but as much as you can, you want to try and keep it that way. People are going to leave coffee cups, and they're going to leave sunglasses, and they're going to, knock over your pile of brochures. And pretty soon it looks all helter skelter and it's everywhere. The better you can do trying to keep it straight and clean, I think is really, really important for the display as well. All right, let me run back to the other screen really quick and let me check the chat, see if we have any questions. Okay, Tammy, we're gonna talk about the spin wheel. Um, the small pads of paper. Leah says, what's written on the small pads of paper?
It's just
Uh,
printed up to sign up to win my raffle. It's got their information, and then it says, what are your interests to travel? And at a local print shop, print me up some pads, relatively inexpensive, and they're right there.
yep. Kathy, I'm going to come back to your budget question, okay? Because I think that's really, really important to address for sure. Okay, let me go back to where's my Zoom window? I'm telling you guys, sometimes I am not very technologically advanced. Oh, my kid's home. They had a day off school today, and he's playing Minecraft all day, and he's just talking about what he's doing. And I'm like, yeah, you're so far above my head. Okay. So we talked about the display. Step 3 out of 7. We talked a little bit about this. I think showcasing a unique experience is super important. And to that end, it takes some research to be able to do that. So before you even go into a show like this, you got to figure out who is your audience. Okay. Obviously, at a wedding show, you're looking at people who are starting their lives together. They may want some sort of an adventure. Some people are going to be on a budget. Some people are going to, have a little more to spend. So, trying to figure out who the audience is that you're speaking to is going to help you inform a lot of what you bring. Okay. Um, Also, as I noticed, and I know Beth's experience was a little bit different than this, but the wedding shows that I went to, 80 to 90% of the other travel agents there, and there were probably 6 to 7 travel agents at each show. Um, Most of them had their displays heavily focused on tropical and the Caribbean, Hawaii, those kind of things. So again, going back to my background, I wanted to be different. I wanted to showcase a lot more, and we're going to look at this in a second in a little more detail. Um, and make sure that you're thinking about the budgets of all of your clients. Like I said, there's going to be some on really tight budgets, some that are going to have a little more to spend. So I think you really want a mix of approachable trips and then some that are, more out there. I put a couple that I'm like, I'm never going to sell this. And, I like, there's an Antarctica one I'm going to show you guys in a few minutes. And I had a couple people that are like, we want to do our honeymoon to Antarctica. That's the thing now. So, I think really taking the time to pay attention to your audience and figuring out what's unique about what you offer that will speak to them is really important. Okay, here's that flyer. I love this photo. I just found it online. It's a little blurry, sorry, but um that is just like the craziest, coolest wedding experience I can think of. I think of like Free Willy coming up here with the rings and a seal quartet back here. No, I don't know. But this picture actually brought a lot of people into my booth because they were like, I've never seen anything like that before. That's actually a thing people have done. So I thought that was really cool. And really on this, I really just tried to show again the diversity. I didn't want everything to look the same. So did a little bit of Thailand, making sure your materials are inclusive. This is something I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but with my intake form, I didn't do a good job of that the first time because I didn't think about it. But when I put this together, I wanted to make sure I had same-sex couples. I wanted to make sure I had, all the kind of varieties out there, not to make a huge statement, but so people know that I'm inclusive, I'm open, I want to work with everybody. I love everybody. Um, and you can see just some of the unique, Iceland, New Zealand, things that maybe people aren't traditionally thinking of for their weddings. Of course, Lake Louise in Canada, that's just gorgeous. So, um, again, just really trying to craft something unique to speak to everybody that's coming. Okay, so this is my favorite part. Offering interactive elements is super important. The interactivity is what's going to draw people to your booth. And like Beth said, with that spin wheel, I had a line, and I'm looking around at all these other vendors and they didn't have lines. People love getting free stuff, and Archer and Evolution give us the ability to give away vouchers. And there are other programs like that. So people love feeling like they get free things. I gave away probably 32 night stays at these events. And I am telling you, when some of the people won these stays, it was like I handed them a gold toilet. They're like, really? Like, really? You're giving me something? I mean, I had a couple people cry, which was crazy to me. But it's just a lot of fun. So things like a wheel spin, uh, things like video highlights that, really engage people and bring them in, having grab bags which I know Beth did really well, and we're going to show some of those off. The more you can get someone into your booth, the more time you have to talk with them. If you're just trying to, hey, come over here. Yeah, it works sometimes, but if you give them something to do, like spin the wheel, now you have an opportunity to actually engage with them because you have their attention. Let me just check on a couple more questions here. Let's see. The vouchers, Jen, if you talk to your mentor, they can show you where those vouchers are available. It's a little different for every team. Cool. Victoria she just did her first vendor event and got invited to another. Where can I go to create a QR code that's quite cost effective? So I've noticed a couple of things. I actually use a QR code service, and if you Google them, there's a bunch of them, and they charge different amounts, and most of them are pretty inexpensive. What you want is so you can actually go to Canva and create a QR code for free when you're doing the design, and that's great. And you can totally do that. If it's something like on my banner where I put the QR code, I wanted to be able to reassign that QR code, and there's two different types of QR codes. I learned this because I didn't know it at first and it screwed me. So there's a static QR code, which you cannot change. That's like what you get in Canva for free. And then there's a dynamic QR code, and those you can go back and redirect. So if your website changes or you decide, hey, here I'm pointing it to the wedding part of my website, next show I want to point it to family trips, having a dynamic QR code is really important. So I think mine is called QR code generator. I think it's like $70 for a year. So it's not terrible. And it lets me do those dynamic trackable QR codes. It tracks all the clicks. So that's what I do. And let's see. If you thought about investing in sports bottles, mouse pads with yes. Actually, Tanya, when I did my first one, I was going to do luggage tags and sports bottles. And I kind of took too long and ran out of time. And I ended up getting these little compact mirrors for the wedding show, which were really popular, but I can only use those, people at a 5K aren't going to really want these little compact mirrors. So definitely those kind of things can work. And if you plan ahead enough, you can get some great deals on them. Yes, using Vistaprint works for QR codes as well. Desmond says qrcodemonkey.com is a good one that's free. Okay, that's awesome. All right, I think we got all the questions so far. So let's I have a picture after the next one that we're gonna look at the actual prize wheel. Okay, so we'll get back to that in a second so you guys can see how Beth and I set them up. So step 5, this seems very obvious, but I felt it was important to address. Know your stuff. We talked about doing your research ahead of time and make sure that you really study up on some of these things that you might be talking about at the show. It doesn't mean you're going to know every answer because there's 500 million possibilities for everything, right? But you want to make sure when somebody comes to you, it looks like you've done your homework. You don't want to be fumbling around. You don't want to be, oh, yeah, especially because, especially for those of us as we're new and we're trying to do this, we haven't booked every kind of trip, right? And so if somebody asks, hey, have you booked South Africa? I'm going to be honest and I'm going to say no, but I'm going to have some facts to back up that and show them that I actually know that destination, right? So again, you won't have that for everything, and that's okay. But try and do as much research and training and just, have a few fun facts about some of the most popular destinations that you can share because people will book you because they feel like you're the expert. That is one of the best things we bring to the table as a travel agent is our expertise and our desire to know more and to keep learning and all of that. So try to study up. Also, I have no problem when somebody comes up to the table and asks me something I don't know, saying, hey, let me get your email address and I will get back to you. Make sure you get back to them because that is super important. Okay. Like if you tell somebody you're going to get back to them and then you don't, you've just lost the client. Um, if you don't know the answer, you tell them, hey, I'm going to get it to you. And the next day you say, hey, I remember we talked. Here's what I found out about your question. That is a great opportunity to A, contact them again and start the conversation. And they're going to be more likely to book with you because you took the time, right, to remember them. And they're going to feel special for that. Okay. Tanya asked if you know you are going to be outside, would you recommend either just an awning type covering for shade or a fully enclosed screen tent? I think this depends on the environment. I generally don't like screens because it's a barrier, right? And people have to open it to come inside, and some people just aren't going to do that. It's whether or not it seems like it's a huge barrier, I think it is for some people. Um, with an easy up, make sure you have sandbags because it's going to blow around. And I think I've seen that mistake so many times. And then the booth is flying away and you're off to Oz and you don't want that. So make sure they sell sandbags for easy ups. I'm bringing my banner to the 5K, 10K run, and I'm gonna put sandbags on the back of it inside the thing just so it doesn't blow away. So yeah, I think you could totally do that. I try to stay away from the enclosed screens because in general, unless you're serving food, I don't really think it's necessary. Or, unless you're setting up in the middle of the bayou in New Orleans and you have 10 million mosquitoes around you, then, it might be some reprieve for people. But yeah, I don't usually worry about the enclosing part. Okay,
Shade
so
part's important if you're outside.
say that again.
That to have the shade,
Yeah,
especially if they're outside. Some people will just hover under there and start looking at your stuff just
yep,
because they wanted to get out of the sun.
yep, that's true. Even things like if it's gonna be the middle of summer, it's a hot day, have a couple of those little fan spray bottles for people to come and cool themselves down. Things like that can get people to your table. And again, the more you get people there, the more if they're stopping to cool themselves off, that's an opportunity for a conversation, which I love. So step 6, we talked a little bit about this, run contests or giveaways. So in my opinion, this is the best way to get warm leads because you're gonna get people interested to fill out their information. Okay. I got at my last show, 4.5 hours, I got 168 leads in 4.5 hours just from people filling out for one of our cruise vouchers that we had. I think Beth did the 7-night resort stay. I did the 3, 4, 7-night cruise. And you can mix it up, depending on the show, depending on, if I go to the same show next year, maybe I'll do the resort stay just to change it up. But I think this is a great way to get pertinent info. In my opinion, for most events, you don't just want to ask for name and email address. This is your time to get some information on what they're looking for. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. Okay, because that's going to help you when you go to reach out to them later. So things like travel vouchers are great. Swag, offering a small discount or a bonus if they book by X date, all of those kind of things. And I said in here, make sure all items are branded. That's not a hard and fast rule with everything. Okay. I think uh, Beth and I both used these stress balls that we did. Um, and they weren't branded, but they were super popular to give away. They were easy for us to get, and they brought people over. So, the chances if you get somebody over for a swag, if I'm going to give them the unbranded stuff and throwing a business card in with it or something. But for the most part, I try to buy branded things when I can, like as much as possible, because you never know, and you want to think about things too that people are going to use and that are going to be in plain view. For the Super Bowl run, I'm doing magnets like fridge magnets that have all my business information on them. And my hope is people will put those on their refrigerator or hold up their kids' artwork or something. And every once in a while they'll see it. And then when they're ready to book a trip, hopefully it'll click in there. So here's some examples. So this is Beth's prize wheel. I set mine up very similarly, but she took it to the next level. So I did hotel stay on the yellows, and then all the rest of them I did like swag. You can see she was super creative here, which I love. There's booking bonuses, there's a kiss your mate. So Beth, why don't you talk about kind of a little bit of what each one of these were for you?
Of course, the hotel stay was the voucher, and I just put them in all different colored envelopes so they, were bright and stood out. Kiss your mate because it was a bridal show, but I knew that a lot of people would not be coming with their mate, and I found that to be true. And they'd say, "But my mate's not here," and I said, "Well, that's okay. We took care of this." And I just put my business card with some Hershey Kisses in that little bag, and they were thrilled. And I gave both of them one of the little Hershey Kisses bag. The swag one, or I don't remember which was which, but one was the little globe, the stress ball that Mike and I both used. And people were throwing them at each other and having a great time with them.
Available on
And
Amazon, by the way, guys. That's where we bought that. That's where we bought the prize wheel, all of that.
that's where I got the little bags, and they were like super cheap. My booking bonus was just on Canva, I printed those up. The little envelopes that I've got to put in were $1.50 for 70 or for 25 of them. And they're branded. That gives them a book by date and a travel by date. And it doesn't really say what they're going to get. So if they book with me and they get the $50, depending on, the travel that I'm booking for them, that will determine what $50 worth of stuff. It could be a gift card to someplace or anything like that. Just being creative, and I hope that whoever gets the $50 is going to have a big trip booked, so it's worth my while. But they were cheap to make. I mean, I just printed them up, folded them up. Inside, there's also my business card. I branded the little envelope. I branded everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. What did you do for the free spot? Was that just
The free spot, I I just kind of made a joke of it. I'm like, they go, "What's the free spot?" I'm like, "That's free to me. That means I don't have to give you anything." And they go, "Aw." And so then I'd give them a little bag of kisses, or depending on the interaction that I had with them. Um, I also had the little silicones that you stick on the back of your cell phone to put your driver's license and stuff in there. And I gave them something anyway, depending on the conversations that we had. Like
Yep.
sometimes I just gave them one of the stress balls, but if they were really talking travel with me a lot, then of course that determined how much money I was going to spend to give them on their free spot.
I love that. Yeah, and the wheel was so fun. Obviously, we're talking a lot about wedding shows here, but I cannot tell you how many kids dragged their parents over to the booth at my shows because they wanted to spin this. I had this one infant who was probably 8 or 9 months old, maybe even younger, 6 months. They could hold their head up. But oh my gosh, mom came and spun the wheel, and we let him spin the wheel. And the baby won a hotel stay for mom, which was really funny. But they walked away, and this kid is like hanging over mom's shoulder, reaching back for the wheel. And she ended up, I'm like, oh, come on back, spin it again. So I got more time to talk to them. The kids were awesome with this kind of stuff. And it really, parents will listen to their kids when they want to come over and do something. So this is an example of what I did for my contact form. And when I said earlier I wasn't being very inclusive, um, I didn't think about it the first time. So I put bride's name, groom's name, and just, I did this really quick, like 2 days before, and had to get it printed out and sent it in. And nobody said anything to me, but I saw after the first show, people would like cross out groom and put bride. And I was like, oh man, that was something I really screwed up for as, inclusive and opening and all of that I, claim to be. So for the next one, I changed this to bridegroom, just so it was open to everybody. And I think those kind of details are really important. But you can see I put I'm interested in, and just check them off: destination, wedding, honeymoon, family travel. So depending on what show I go to, I'll change that up, ask what destinations they're considering, and then leave another comment space. This gave me so much information when I went back to connect with people. I could reach out and say, hey, we met at the show. We talked about a honeymoon to Alaska. How can I help, this and that? So gives you just a little bit of that information to make sure people feel like you listened to them and they feel like you remembered what they talked to you about. Okay, so I think that's really, really key. And both of us just used a form like that. That's what they entered for the raffle. That's what we did the drawing when we got home. And then now one thing I want to try, and I'm a little scared to do it, but instead of having it handwritten, I want to try to do this digitally. And it's a little nerve-wracking because the last show I did not have a great Wi-Fi connection, but it is so much work to try and transpose these into a spreadsheet and read email addresses, properly, that people scribble in. So that's probably going to be my next show experience, is trying a digital version of this. And I will definitely report back on kind of how that goes. Okay, and this is the last step, which honestly is probably the most important of everything we talked about today. And this is where most people, including myself, mess up. You've got to consistently follow up. And what I say is, you want to have a plan for this before you even set out for the show. Okay, you want to be ready to get started as soon as you get home. You need to figure out, how am I going to get the leads from the forms into a spreadsheet or something so I can follow it? Is there a way that I want to do that? How am I going to follow up with them? Am I going to send everybody a text? Is everybody going to get an email? What does that email look like? Try to design templates ahead of time. So have that all ready to go, because what I've found is, if you get home and you haven't set any of this up, it looks so daunting. And especially, like I said, guys, I walked away with 168 leads after one show. That is a lot of people to transpose and follow up with. And, in general, the numbers that I hear from sales professionals, and I'm excited to learn more about this at convention, but it's generally 5 to 8 touches before a prospect books with you. So that means 5 to 8 times that you have to email, text, call, engage with them in some way before sometimes they'll even call you back, much less book with you. So um, when you think about that, times 168 leads, times 5 to 8 touches, and you have to figure out what each of those touches is and how you're going to send them out, that sounds so overwhelming, right? And so if you can get everything set up with your templates ahead of time and have your plan and just put it in your calendar, for 3 days after the show, you're going to work on the follow-up, and this is what you're going to do. And then the next week, do something else, or a couple of weeks later. It will save you so much heartache, and it will make it much more likely that you actually do the follow-up. Because the worst thing you could do is spend all the money to get the leads, and then poof, you just let them kind of drift away like, flower petals in the wind. So that's a huge thing for me. Also, consider additional incentives you can use for those who book after the show. So my last show was in December. I'm like, I am not getting anybody to contact me before Christmas. So I'm going to send out one hit and just let people, know I'm thinking about them. And then I'm not going to bother them because it's the holidays. And then in January, I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, hey, if you book by the end of January, you're going to get a voucher for a free stay, or, something like that. Okay. Trying to think of additional incentives and what kind of a calendar schedule you can put those on. It's a great way to do it. And this is another thing I think a lot of us forget, because, we're entrepreneurs, we're busy, we're running all the time. Um, Put down notes on the show and save them in your computer. What went well, what didn't go well, any notes on what maybe other vendors that you saw were doing that worked really well, ideas that you have for next time. Try to just take 30 minutes and download out of your brain everything onto a piece of paper, put it in your Google Drive folder, under the event. And that gives you something to reference when in 6 months you're trying to do the next show and you're like, gosh, I don't even remember what I liked about it or not. I think that's really an important part of the follow-up as well. So um, I would like to talk to you just about a little bit about what that looks like because Beth, what has your experience been since you since you follow since you know did the shows? And I know you're going to talk about your template, so I'm going to move over to that, and then you can kind of walk us through that as well.
I also had over 100 leads, and the event also provided a list of all the registered attendees. So I had the ones that came to my booth, plus I have leads of everybody that was there. I've got my spreadsheet, ones I did that had no contact with me. I know where they're at. And of course, where I've started is the ones that I know did have contact with me. And I went just did this. It's kind of cheesy, but it's flashy. And it's an email. And I figure if they just glance over it, it's got so much going on that they're at least going to take a look at it. And it just tells them, actually, I sent you the wrong one. The card that's in the middle, I've got a much bolder one because
Mm.
that one print was too small. But it's basically the same, except for it's easier to read. All my details are on there. Why we should use a travel agent. It's got myths about travel agents and my messages on how I was a myth buster on those. And then just, all the different things. Tell them that I'm certified in lots of things. Can check out my Facebook page to look at specials because they throw mock bookings on there all the time. And just inviting them to come back to me. I've got up there, wow, what a fun day, because it really was. And since that went out, I think I just sent that out Sunday or Saturday. I'm working on 6 vacations just from that. And from, of course, from my leads. Now, my next step is we know there's the non-deliverable emails, the emails that will go in people's junk or spam that they don't see. So now I'm creating a postcard because postage is cheap on a postcard. Lots of hands will be touching it.
Yep.
From the time I put them in the mailbox to the time they get delivered, and everybody's going to see my information. And it's just another touch to these people. That way, if my email did go into their spam and they never saw it, now they got a card in the mail.
I love that. I mean, when you showed me this earlier, I just think this is brilliant. I think this is a really, really awesome way to follow up with people. That is that is just so much better than just a text email. And you really laid things out really well here. So I'm super excited that you've gotten those results like that. That talks, right, about how this all works. So Beth, we have a question about sharing the template for this. So I don't know if this was in Canva, but
This was just,
uh,
yeah, I was in Canva. I
it,
can I can send it out.
cool. Yeah, maybe we can put just a shareable link in the description or something for anybody who wants to use something like this to make it your own.
Yeah,
That would
let
be
me
really
see if I
cool.
can get that while you talk.
Um, but yeah, guys, I mean that has been most of my experience as well with the follow-up. I think this time of year is really hard. So depending on what events that you're doing, like I have really limited my follow-up um a bit through December and January because I think with the holidays and then everybody still um catching up from all the money that they spent at the holidays and stuff. I just send a couple, emails here and there. I also try to think about things I'm doing in my business that are relevant for them. So I'm lucky enough to be going to Italy next week for 9 days for a fam trip, and I'm going to a one of the biggest travel conferences in Europe while I'm there to check in with destinations. And I had a ton of people interested in Italy and Greece. So I'm like, guys, what can I check out for you while I'm there? What can I find for you? Who are you interested in speaking with? And it's an opportunity for people to reach back out and me actually get them on the ground some answers that they're looking for. So, the more creative you are with your follow-up, the less cookie cutter, the more comprehensive you are. Like, think about if you were in their position and what needs um, what needs would you want met, and how what would be the biggest things people could do to fill your needs in that situation, and then, act accordingly with them. So, yeah, that I think this is brilliant. Jim, this is being recorded, so after the call, we're going to download it. I'm going to put it on my YouTube. Beth might do that as well, and we will make sure the links get shared in the chats, with all the teams, so you can watch it back then. Okay, but um, that's pretty much all I had. Beth, did you have anything else that you wanted to kind of end with before we take some Q&A?
Just remember to watch your budget, but don't be afraid of your budget, especially when it comes to getting yourself out there. And like Mike said, make sure that you creating things that you can use over and over again, because those stands aren't cheap. And
Yeah.
you don't want to have to do a brand new one every time.
Yep.
And follow up, follow up, follow up.
Yep. 100%, couldn't have said that better. And to that end, I know we had a question earlier about doing this on a budget. Like, you don't have to have the fancy banner stand like I got. Like, I have a lot of trade show experience, and I tend to be somebody that just invests in things like this. Like, it's my business model. Like, right, it's just how I function. But you don't have to do that. You can create, I mean, look at Beth's awesome display with her stand-up banner, and those things are a heck of a lot cheaper
Yeah,
than
the stand-up
back.
banner was Vistaprint, and I looked at a lot of places for research, and that was the best price I could find.
Yeah, I mean, even posters these days, like those 24 by 36 posters are usually like 70, $75. Like, it's crazy how expensive those get. So, do your research, take the time, do it early. Don't try to do it last minute, because that gets a lot more expensive. And try to think of things like, I thought Beth's Hershey Kiss example, those little bags, that was brilliant. And how much did that cost? Because you can go to Sam's Club and get or Costco and get a massive bag of Hershey Kisses and put those together, right? Shopping at
I
Dollar
think the
General.
bags were like $8 for 100,
Yep.
Amazon. And
Yeah.
they
I
have all
mean,
different designs. That's kind of what I like. They
yep.
had cheaper ones, they had more expensive ones, but
Yep.
that's what I chose.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing I'll say on that, like, I don't know how you feel, but for me, I would rather not give out anything than give out, like, I have a client, and he's hilarious. Like, I've been a part of his events for years, and it's a dad's group, and we do an annual retreat. And I'm telling you, I make fun of him every year because this guy goes to Oriental Trading and buys the cheapest crap he can find just to put things in front of people and in their hands. Like, and I'm just like, think strategically and think where it's worth spending money. Think of things like that are relevant, like the Hershey's Kisses, but don't go out and just buy a bunch of cheap crap just to have cheap stuff to hand out. That to me, I would rather have nothing and sell them on myself, and have the time to talk. I don't think people have to have giveaways to walk away. I think using things that don't cost us money, like the vouchers, or things like that, we have those opportunities and those tools, so use those. I'm a big fan of, like, investing if you want to invest, but if you're going to do it, make sure you're investing in something quality that is good for people. Don't just throw your money at random stuff, like, I just not into that. So, just be creative, think of what you can do with your own hands, like those little bags that are really going to make an impact on people. And that's the best way to do it. So, I want to thank you guys for being here. I'm going to just go ahead and stop the recording, and then we can hang out and do a little more Q&A if you guys have anything else for us.